Please proceed, Your Worship.
Thank you, everyone. It is on or about 2 o'clock. I'm here at Municipal Council Chambers, and the balance of council is working from home, with our staff variously working from home or in their offices. We're also joined by some citizens, applicants, and agents for statutory public meetings that we will be having come up on our agenda this afternoon. So we move to the approval of the agenda. And I have a motion that Councillor LeBlanc.
Yes, on the agenda, I would like to change, just wait a minute, it's 5.2, from a notice of motion to a motion, if I could.
So Councillor LeBlanc is proposing that council amend the June 15th, 2020 agenda to move notice of motion 5.2 to a motion for discussion and debate, and that's the notice of motion with regard to summer students. Is there a seconder? Councillor Rowley.
For discussion, I'll second the motion.
Madam Clerk, would this require a 2/3 majority vote to proceed? I believe she said yes, it would, but
Yes,
she's
it will.
muted. Thank you. See, I can read lips, Candace. I'm learning. Okay, is there any discussion on that change to the agenda? Madam Clerk, will you please call the vote?
Councillor Ron Anderson? How do you vote, Councillor Ron Anderson?
Yes.
Councillor Mark Bateman?
Yes.
Councillor Doug LeBlanc?
Yes,
Councillor Emily Rowley?
Yes.
Councillor Mary Tadman?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Laura Vink?
Yes.
Mayor Brian Ostrander?
Yes.
And it's carried.
So our next motion is that council approve the June 15th, 2020 council planning meeting agenda as amended. And I'll
So
need a
moved.
mover, please.
Councillor Rowley moves.
Second.
Councillor
So
LeBlanc.
moved, Mary.
So I have it moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Councillor Tadman. Is there any discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Councillor Ron Anderson?
Yes.
Councillor Mark Bateman?
Yes.
Councillor Doug LeBlanc?
Yes,
Councillor Emily Rowley?
Yes.
Councillor Mary Tadman? Mary?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Laura Vink?
Yes.
Mayor Brian Ostrander?
Yes.
Carried.
Thank you. Members of council, please declare any pecuniary interests and state the general nature thereof if you have any. Madam Clerk, there are none noted. And we'll move to announcements. Members of council, does any member of council have any announcement to make? Seeing none, I have one, and Mr. Ty would like to make an announcement. But I would like to introduce everyone to Mr. Paul Walsh. Paul is our new Director of Planning and Development, and Paul started on June 8th. So he's a week in, so we expect you to be right up to speed, Paul. Thank you very much. Paul's responsible for the administration and management of land use planning and the application of the Ontario Building Code and municipal bylaws in Brighton, and is an important member of our senior management team. Paul is a member of the OPPI, which is what, Paul? The Ontario Professional Planning Institute?
Correct.
And the CIP, which I assume is the Canadian equivalent?
That's correct.
There you go. With over 30 years of progressive experience in municipal land use planning, having previously worked as a planner, then in planning policy development and long-range planning with Hastings County, and most recently as the manager of planning for Prince Edward County, where his responsibilities included zoning bylaw enforcement, with the chief building official and coordinating development applications in coordination with the engineering staff. Paul applies solid knowledge to his work, including a degree from the University of Waterloo, the Loyalist Municipal Management course, and courses in GIS, Esri's ArcMap, project management, and team building. Welcome to Brighton, Paul.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here.
We're happy to have you on board. And Mr. Ty, you had an announcement to make.
I do, Your Worship. Worship members of council, in order to augment your introduction of Paul, quite simply, it's been a pleasure for me to assist the municipality for exactly the last 2 years with planning services and providing planning guidance when requested. And I look forward to this transition of the authority and the municipality's planning services over to Mr. Wall. Thank you.
But I understand, Mr. Ty, you're hanging around for just a little while longer.
Currently, Your Worship, I'm to understand I'm at Paul's and Mr. Castleman's disposal.
Well, I'm sure they appreciate that, Mr. Ty, as do we all.
Thank you.
And thank you very much. And for all the work you've done over the course of the past many years here in the municipality. It is appreciated very much.
Thank you.
We'll move into notices of motion and motions. Our first notice of motion, which will be read as a motion at the July meeting. I believe it will be July 20th if we pass the clerk's recommendation later on. And this notice of motion will be moved by Councillor LeBlanc and seconded by Councillor Bateman. Whereas the municipality of Brighton has completed its official plan review and adopted a revised official plan in December 2019. And whereas the background reports in support of the official plan review identify that development should occur primarily through intensification within the urban settlement area. And whereas the lands to the east of a northerly extension of Princess Street are within the intensification boundary of the urban settlement area. And whereas provision of access to these lands is important for the maintenance of a healthy land supply over the long term. And whereas providing a second north-south into the urban settlement area is desirable. And whereas development of major new road connections are typically multi-year endeavors. And whereas it is anticipated that the federal and provincial governments will be encouraging and providing financial support for shovel-ready municipal infrastructure projects. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Municipality of Brighton Council directs staff to investigate the extension of Princess Street north to connect to County Road 30. And further, that staff to investigate what provincial and/or federal funding may be available or will become available to assist with undertaking such a project. And we'll read that in the July meeting as a motion. Our next is a motion. Now we have moved it to a motion on the agenda. So I will read the motion and then I will open the floor for discussion. It is moved by Councillor LeBlanc and seconded by Councillor Rowley that council and staff should revisit and consider hiring 5 students for the summer months. Councillor LeBlanc, this is your motion. Would you care to speak to it?
Thank you. I had to take myself off of mute. Yes, since the province is reopening up and letting us open up, like the splash pad is coming. They used to have a student for that, and for assisting some of the staff on doing some of the work. And that I've checked with the federal government. Northumberland County still has $88,000 in the pot for hiring students, and if we applied, that we would probably get some of that. And also, most of the other municipalities have hired the full regiments of students, but Brighton, because of the COVID, didn't do it, but we're opening up. I would like to see council reconsider and see if the funding's there. If not, rehiring through town funding to bring him here to hire him. That's my concept.
Thank you very much, Councillor LeBlanc. My understanding is that we did apply for federal funding for students, but we did not receive word back from the federal government. Mr. Castleman, would you care to speak to that? You're on mute, Bob. You're on mute. There you go.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
In the normal course during budget deliberations, we give consideration to hiring a number of different students. This year, our intention was to hire up to 8 students, and we would normally apply through the federal program. We have applied in the normal course, met the deadline accordingly, and to date, we have not received notice of funding that may or may not be available to assist in hiring the students. Of the 8 student positions, we've gone ahead with 3 of them. One will be funded through the DBIA and their levy. The other 2 are being hired for asset management in the GIS area. And if you will recall back during the budget deliberations, we talked about using $619,000 of modernization funding. Part of that funding will be used to hire the 2 students. So we have hired 3 of the 5. The other 5, we decided collectively back in May and with a report to council on June 1st as one of the mitigation measures to ensure that we were having necessary funds to cover any revenue shortfall. We made a decision to not hire the 5 students. So we have applied for the program, have not received notice. So in the normal course, we would hire someone from May 4th to the end of August, August 28th for a 17-week period. We don't know whether we're going to be funded for 17 weeks, 8 weeks, whether it's going to be 40 hours a week, 25 hours a week. There's certainly an uncertainty. We had budgeted for about $10,500 for on the revenue side, assuming that we would receive a grant for the 5 positions, knowing full well that the gross cost is in around $55,000, $56,000. You've got a net cost that you're looking at about $45,000 or so, and that's being used to offset some of the revenue loss that we're anticipating as a result of COVID. So that's it. That's it for now. Happy to answer any questions.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. I have a question first for Mr. Castleman. And you have reported to us on this already. I'm just wondering if currently, if we have the staff in order to take care of everything we need to for this summer, or are we in need of more?
Certainly, this is a funny year given the COVID pandemic, and things are different for all of us, not only the municipality, but every other business within our corporation. So we're having to adjust accordingly. And I'm certainly concerned about the safety of our staff and making sure that our team can come back to work on a full-time basis, but they have to be safe to do that. And as of today, not all staff are back. We are developing or have developed the necessary protocols to bring all full-time staff back, some of which have started down the Public Works Yard this week. And hopefully with the necessary training in place for the remainder of this week, our hope and desire is to have the rest of the team back as early as next week. So next week we'll have the full-time complement back. If you're going to bring on students, you have to have them properly supervised and making sure that we can protect their interests at the same time. So we're being mindful of the pandemic and social distancing and having a number of vehicles in place, having 1 person in the vehicle or having 2 persons in the vehicle, and what we have to do from a PPE standpoint. So there's many considerations. We're just getting our full-time team back. I've spoken many times to Mr. Parkinson and Mr. Miller with respect to having adequate staff to make sure that the level of service is as best as we can make it for this year. They seem to be comfortable at this stage. Having said that, the province is making changes. It seems on a daily and weekly basis, and we're adjusting those changes. So certainly stage 2 has just begun last week. As a result of that, we're trying to get the splash pad up and running as quickly as we can this week, and trying to get our team back to working on a full-time basis. So beyond that, happy to answer any other questions.
Councillor LeBlanc?
Sorry, just took myself off of mute. I understand the dilemma we're in, but when it comes back to one to a truck, I've been watching the taxis, you know, people in the back and driving with more than one vehicle, persons in the vehicle with PPE and correctness. The town of Coburg, they have it. Crammy has it. Port Hope has hired their full regiments. And how I found out about this, I was on a Zoom meeting, and I said that Northumberland County, I got to watch how I say this, wasn't hiring any students, but I got a severe pushback by the other reeves and the mayors of the other towns that were on the meeting. So then I started asking why not Brighton? So that's when I started looking at it, and I found out that like some of the farms that where they have the maize, they applied for their students, they got them. Other people in Brighton jobs have got their full funding. So then that's when I reached out to the federal government and found out that there's still 88,000 for Northumberland County. So if we applied and we didn't get it, if I could get a reference number of the application number, if it doesn't offend anybody in council or anywhere, I would like to reach out to Phil Lawrence and David Puccini and find out why Brighton didn't get their full funding.
Just to be clear, it would be federal, so it wouldn't have anything to do with Mr. Puccini. It would be Phil Lawrence's office specifically. Councillor Rowley.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wondering, as per the email received earlier today from Mr. Castleman, is this something that we should maybe at some point discuss in closed when we're getting to these kind of details?
Yes.
Well, that's your opinion, Mr. Castleman. Certainly, if we get into the details of how people are getting paid or specifics about any contracts, we will have to go into closed. But right now, we're just discussing whether or not to hire 5 students, and I think that's perfectly acceptable in open. We would certainly have this discussion in open during budget. So we will continue on until such time as we feel the need to move it into closed. And if we feel the need to move it into closed, I would appreciate it, rather than going into closed during the middle of an open session meeting, that we tack it on to our closed session meeting at the end of the meeting, if that's necessary. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. I think we are in tough times, difficult times. Things are changing. Every municipality is going to handle things differently. Every municipality has different responsibilities and different staff complement. I am content to let our management decide when and who we need to hire as far as students or anyone else. And we've already made these decisions, so I'm content to just leave things be. But
Thank you. Councillor Tadman? You're muted, Mary.
Thought I'd already done that. Sorry. We could have got lost in the shuffle. A lot of people, a lot of municipalities would have applied. I agree with Councillor LeBlanc that we should reach back out to MP Lawrence just to see if there is some more funds. Looking around the municipality, it's not totally shabby, but there's certainly an awful lot that the students could do. And there is students that are very disappointed because they can't find any work and they need that to go back to universities. So there are residents also, and if we can do something for them, I want to do that. So if we need a motion, I certainly would move that
There's
we
already a
have
motion. There's a motion on the
that
floor.
one, yes, but I mean after that's done, maybe.
Okay. Anyone else? Councillor Bateman.
I just want to express my opinion, but just to clarify a couple things. The summer job program, the closing date of the application process was February 28th. There is no extension on it, so regardless of whether there's money left in there, I highly doubt the federal government's going to extend that now. We're into June. So even though there's 88 or $80,000 left in there, I don't think they can extend that deadline for one municipality because they'd have to do it for all. The sheet or the information for everybody that applied, that is available to any MP. They get that from the federal government. Those sheets indicate everybody that has applied. There is a direct link to a federal site that shows you who was successful. There was 3 places successful in Brighton. There were several municipalities within Northumberland that were successful. So if we do go with this motion and hire another 5, that's going to be 8 with no funding, because those that receive funding are already listed on this link that shows you who has received the funding. So if we haven't received it, it's highly unlikely that it's coming now. I just wanted to put that out there.
Thank you, Councillor Bateman. Councillor Anderson? You're muted, Ron.
How's that? Good?
You're good now. Yeah.
Okay. What I'm hearing is this is not all about funding. It's about management. And I don't feel we should be micromanaging our managers. I think they came up with some good decisions back in May when we had this discussion. I'm going back to what our deputy mayor is saying. We discussed this. It's about mitigation. It's about practicality. What can be done? Our community is different than other communities. We talk about keeping distance and traveling, how many in a truck, all those things. That's all been worked out by our management. And I think we need to support management, and they also recognizing the needs that need to be done with what we've got. But there's people that aren't even returned back to work yet. So these are full-time people that haven't come back after June. So without them back in the seat, I don't know. I don't think we can be hiring more people. I don't think it's appropriate. I won't agree with it.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. The treasurer had a comment. Ms. Whitfield?
So we have been in constant communication with Canada Summer Jobs staff. In fact, up until last week. So funding is still open and available to us. One of the things that I wanted to point out was the Canada Summer Jobs program was extended. So we can have staff here, student staff here until February. So instead of ending by the end of August, it's now ending at the end of February 2021. Also, the funding cap has been increased from 50% of minimum wage to 100% of minimum wage. So if we're not in a position at the moment to bring some staff on board, some student staff on board, we may be able to bring a co-op student in the fall. So I'm communicating with Canada Summer Jobs on that part of the program right now.
Thank you. Councillor Tadman, you had your hand up.
Yeah, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to make it very clear that I personally, and only can speak for myself, there's no way, and I think the record has shown through the years that I'm not in any way trying to direct the directors or staff. I just see an opportunity here to help out our students. And so therefore, thank you, Linda, for the extra information there. So let's see what we can do with this. Let's see if we can help. Some of these students have depended on getting this job. Understand that some were promised this job and now can't work. And I know from personal experience, I have a granddaughter who has applied everywhere and cannot get a job. So I'm not out to promote her. I don't do that kind of thing. I don't ask for favors. But for all students, that's who I'm speaking for.
Thank you, Councillor Tadman. And I don't know if anyone was promised a job. I know that some people were presented with offer letters, which were then rescinded based on COVID-19. And I would ask Mr. Castleman to chime in there if I'm offside on that assessment. You're muted, Bob.
I know you're correct.
Thank you. Councillor LeBlanc, you had your hand up.
Yes, Mayor, through you, I was not directing staff. I'm just trying to, we're looking at trying to stimulate our economy, stimulate jobs, stimulate stuff. Our students, they look out for this, and they're a new generation. And they were always used correctly and nicely in this township. And they're going, I've watched the guy they hired for the DBIA. He's doing a fantastic job. Not watched him as I'm driving to work. I end up by seeing him. So just looking at him, and they're all working good. Just that the students always had a place and they were always working good. And then we would use our permanent staff to do the gross work and the big stuff and the big work, not using them to do they're not menial tasks, but other tasks that they weren't like doing on our roads or ditching or brushing and stuff going on our sidewalks, and we're doing our painting of our curves. And that's all I was looking at. And I was looking at the funding. And the number 5 showed up, but my motion could be 1, 2, or 3. But what is needed? You're going to do the splash pad. Which one are going to be doing the splash pad? They always use students for that, for running it and cleaning the stuff. So I'm just looking at the overall thing, the overall picture. I am not directing staff. I'm not trying to second guess them. Nobody wants to put me in that bracket, because I can go there very easily for the next 2.5 years. All I'm trying to do is to help the citizens in the town.
Councillor LeBlanc, are you threatening council or staff there? I don't think that's appropriate.
No, I'm not threatening anybody.
That's good. Carry on.
Okay, I'm just one of the things. Okay, not a problem. I will be quiet.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. You know, we're all allowed to have our opinion and we don't have to agree, but we certainly don't have to threaten each other. I just want to make it clear that the motion is that council and staff should consider hiring 5 students. We're debating how it should work and all that and about funding, but that's actually not part of the motion. So of course, if there's funding and we have a need and we're able to make it happen, staff, you know, we don't have to decide that staff is allowed to do that. That's already part of the budget. But I'm speaking to the motion that we have staff go back and reconsider it. But I think it's already on their mind. They already know that if they're able to get funding, like Linda was saying, there may be an opportunity in the fall to do something. I believe staff have this in hand. They know what, and when they're able to do something, they're going to do it. So that's my issue with this motion. I don't think it's necessary. I know they're going to do something if they can. And if we can employ some students, of course we want to do it. But we can't spend taxpayer dollars that we don't have right now, because we are behind, and that was presented to us last meeting. We've made provisions to try to have a balanced budget still. And I think for me, that's very important to support staff in that.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So the motion is that council and staff should revisit and consider hiring 5 students for the summer months. Is there any further discussion on that motion? So Madam Clerk, will you please call the vote?
Okay. Councillor Ron Anderson. Ron,
You're muted, Ron.
what happened to him? He's gone.
I don't know what happened. There he is.
There he is.
He's back.
How's that?
Councillor Ron Anderson. No.
No.
Councillor Mark Bateman.
Yes.
Councillor Doug LeBlanc.
Yes.
Councillor Emily Rowley.
No.
Councillor Mary Tadman.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Laura Vink.
No.
Mayor Brian Ostrander.
No.
Defeated.
Thank you, everyone. Good, robust debate. We're moving into statutory public meeting, and I'll need a motion that council move into the statutory public meeting June 15th, 2020 at 2:31 p.m. Is there a mover? Councillor Rowley, is there a seconder?
I'll second it.
Deputy Mayor Vink. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Councillor Ron Anderson. You're unmuted. You're fine.
Yes.
Counselor Mark Bateman,
Yes.
Counselor Doug LeBlanc.
No.
You don't want to move into statutory public meeting?
There's no debate, Madam Clerk. He's voted no.
Counselor Emily Rowley,
Yes.
Counselor Mary Tadman. Mary, you're muted. Did you read the lips?
I keep on muting it, but it keeps muting me back. They don't like me talking around here. Yes,
Thank you.
Y-E-S. Can you read my lips?
Yep.
George Bush said
Deputy Mayor
that
Laura
too.
Vink,
Yes.
and Mayor Brian Ostrander.
Yes.
That's carried.
We have 3 items in our statutory public meeting this afternoon. The first is with regard to 79 Newton Lane. The purpose of the public meeting is to request a decision of council on a zoning bylaw amendment for the following application, being Z02 2020. The owner is 200603 Ontario Corporation, McDonald Homes. The location is part of Lot 3 and 4, Concession 3, 79 Newton Lane. And Mr. Ty, by what method and on what date was notice of this zoning bylaw amendment application given?
Thank you, Your Worship. This is the first application of 3 for council this afternoon. Notice of the application was given by first-class prepaid mail on May 21st, 2020, to all property owners within 120 meters of the subject property. Notice was also circulated to all ministries and agencies required under the Planning Act, as well as a sign was posted on the property.
Thank you, Mr. Ty. Would you please explain the purpose and reason for the proposed zoning bylaw amendment and what it would accomplish?
Thank you. This property was the subject of a previous rezoning application approved by council in September 2018. That application requested and was approved to change the zoning from community facility to rural industrial exception 5 to permit a contractor's yard. The proposed amendment before council this afternoon would serve to amend the existing provisions of the rural industrial exception 5 zone on the property, which currently permits only a contractor's yards, to further permit the development of a shop and accessory dwelling unit.
Thank you, Mr. Ty. Mr. McDonald, would you or your agent wish to make any comments?
Only if there's questions from council members.
Okay, so if you hear those, you have opportunity to answer them at the end of my questioning here. Thank you, sir. Are there persons present who have questions or comments regarding the proposed zoning bylaw amendment application? Madam Clerk, did you register anyone for that purpose for this?
The only 2 registered are Jonathan Hart and David McDonald for this application.
So there are none noted. Are there any questions or comments regarding the proposed zoning bylaw amendment from members of council? Councillor Bateman.
I sent a few emails earlier to the planner. I just want to wrap my head around this. So the zoning hasn't changed now, because as we had discussed, when you go up there, there's already, I think it's being used as a staging site now for the company that's doing the expansion at the 401. So has the zoning changed already, or are they using it improperly? Or I'm confused about the whole thing. When I go up there, it looks like it's supposed to look on what we're voting on. So I don't.
Mr. Ty?
Thank you, Your Worship. No, the zoning has not changed since September 2018 to permit a contractor's yard. What is stored there If it's the type of product or materials or equipment that would typically be found in a contractor's yard, then that would be consistent with the current zoning. However, I'm to understand from an email that we received on Friday that I circulated to members of council first thing this morning, that apparently there has been some site works or disturbance. That in itself, in my opinion, does not necessarily constitute a violation of the zoning, depending on what exactly has occurred. However, I'm able to confirm for council that subject to this bylaw being approved by council this afternoon, any further developments such as the workshop and the accessory dwelling will be captured by site plan control. That being the case, any current site work would need to conform to any ultimate approved plans.
Thank you. Any further questions from members of council? Go ahead, Councillor Bateman.
Just for clarification, because I received a response from Mr. Ty, just around the Lower Trent, because they had indicated the possible need for a geological study, and it wasn't in the report, and Mr. Ty clarified. Well, if he could just explain maybe for everybody in the public on around the geological study, if it is or isn't needed and why not.
Mr. Ty.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through the chair, the requirement or the perceived requirement of a hydrogeological evaluation was raised by Lower Trent through its that agency's initial review comments, given that this land is captured under the site is captured under the growth plan. However, when we received the letter, we did respond to Lower Trent on March 31st, confirming or advising the Conservation Authority that in fact this property had already been developed, used, and there was a previous septic system and a well on the property. And we asked whether or not Lower Trent had any further comments, and they did not reply further. We took that to mean that they agreed with our opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ty. Any further questions from members of council? Deputy Mayor?
Sure, just one. So when we're looking at rezoning something, this is being rezoned so that it permits, the building of a shop and that sort of thing. Just because we agree to the rezoning, it doesn't mean that that immediately has to happen. We're not agreeing that, yes, he can build this type of shop, We're just agreeing to rezone, so that's a possibility, not that it has to happen within a certain amount of time. Is that correct?
Through the chair, that's correct. Once you approve a zoning on a property, it runs with the property or runs with the land. The only time there would be a sunset provision is once a site plan agreement is executed. Typically, a site plan agreement will stipulate, for example, that the proposed works approved by the municipality requires completion within 2 years. We haven't got that far yet.
Thank you, Mr. Ty. Further questions from members of council? Mr. Ty, there was a question from a member of the public that I'd just like to go over, and the question essentially was, how many times can a piece of land be rezoned? My assumption is as many times as the local council can lawfully do so under the Planning Act, but is there a cap on the number of times an owner or anyone can apply for a rezoning of their property?
No, not specifically. As long as the application is submitted and processed in accord with the Planning Act, then an applicant or a property owner, or in a situation where the property changes hands, for example, any individual owning property is at liberty to apply for a planning approval.
Thank you. Any further questions, members of council? Mr. McDonald, do you have any final comments?
No, not at this time.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Ty, do you have any final comments?
Through the chair, simply, we had received a letter on behalf of an adjacent property owner expressing opposition to the application in terms of non-conformity to the various planning documents and so on. There were no details in terms of how that individual who authored the letter was of that view. So we weren't able to provide much in the way of a reply. However, as is the custom subsequent to today's council meeting, we will acknowledge that we have reviewed that letter, and we will provide him or that party with a detailed planning analysis or response.
Anything further, Mr. Ty?
Secondly, the first thing this morning, I did circulate to council an email that we had received on Friday afternoon. And in essence, this individual is requesting to be notified of any further applications with respect to this property. And again, we would customarily respond following the meeting today that we acknowledge that request and it will be kept on file.
Thank you, sir. Does council wish to make a decision at this time on this zoning bylaw amendment? And usually I'd look around the horseshoe and see nodding heads. So I'm going to do it this way instead. Does anyone, and you can just put your hand up in front of your camera if you object. Does anyone not want to make a decision? Bit of a double negative, I guess, but I'm going to read the motion and see if we get a mover and a seconder. The motion will read that council receives the report regarding rezoning application Z02 2020 as prepared by the municipal planning consultants, and that council enacts a bylaw to amend the existing provisions of the rural industrial exception number 5 zone to further permit the development of a shop and a detached accessory dwelling unit. Is there a mover?
So moved.
Is that Councillor Rowley?
Yes.
Seconder? Deputy Mayor Vink. Further discussion? None noted. Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Councillor Ron Anderson,
Yes.
Councillor Mark Bateman,
Yes.
Councillor Doug LeBlanc,
Yes.
Councillor Emily Rowley,
Yes.
Councillor Mary Tadman. Try again, Mary.
She's saying yes, but she's still muted. Mary, you're still
I know.
muted.
Do anything.
There you go.
There we go.
No. No, you did it. Yeah, there you go.
That's at mute.
There you go.
I
Yes.
guess that's when I speak.
How do you vote, Mary?
Yes.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Laura Vink,
Yes.
Mayor Brian Ostrander.
Yes.
Carried.
Thank you. The second item in our statutory public meeting is with regard to 201 Lisgar Street. The purpose of the public meeting is to request a decision of council on a zoning bylaw amendment for the following application being Z03 2020. The owner is Mark Watkins. The location is part block H of Plan 4, part of Part 1 of Registered Plan 38R 2659, 201 Lisgar Street. Mr. Ty, by what method and on what date was notice of this zoning bylaw amendment application given?
Thank you, Your Worship. Notice of the application was sent by first class prepaid mail on May 25th, 2020 to all property owners within 120 meters. Notice was also circulated to all agencies required under the Planning Act, as well as a sign being erected on the subject property.
Thank you, Mr. Ty. Would you please explain the purpose and reason for the proposed zoning bylaw amendment and what it would accomplish?
Thank you. The purpose of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is to amend the site-specific provisions of the Highway Commercial Exception 13 zone as they pertain to the retained lands of consent applications B17 and B18 2019, which were approved by council on September the 9th, 2019. The subject application further proposes to rezone the severed parcels, being 2 of them, from Highway Commercial 13 to local commercial exception 2 in order to recognize a limited number of permitted uses and site-specific provisions. The rezoning will serve to satisfy a condition of consent applications B17 and B18, 2019.
Thank you, Mr. Ty. Madam Clerk, is the owner or applicant present on the Zoom meeting?
No, he didn't want to be. He is viewing though.
Thank you. Are there, Madam Clerk, are you aware of any persons that are present on the Zoom meeting who have questions or comments?
No, nothing registered for this one.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from members of council? Councillor Anderson?
I think it's a great development area. They're doing a great job there. There's 2 properties just on the south part of that area. I'm not sure if it's part of this parcel. And I thought they were going to be residential lots. You used the word commercial in your, Mr. Ty, when you were speaking there for a moment. Did you just clarify if that's part of this?
Through the chair, the property as a whole, including the 2 parcels that are severed, are in fact through a site-specific amendment are currently designated in the official plan as being recognized for commercial uses. So in order to conform with the official plan designation, it was necessary and appropriate to zone these 2 severed parcels to some form of commercial, but also permit an accessory residential use. That's what this bylaw achieves.
So are we to believe, or am I to believe that they're going to be residential? We don't know yet.
Through the chair, it would not be permitted to develop either of these severed parcels for only residential use. They must have a commercial operation or activity, and the residential would be accessory to that commercial activity.
Okay. No, I don't object to that, but I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. Any further questions from members of council? And I'll ask again, is there anyone on council who does not wish to make a decision this afternoon on this file? I'm going to go ahead and read the motion and ask for a mover and a seconder. The motion will read that council receives a report regarding rezoning application Z03 2020 as prepared by the municipal planning consultants, and that council enacts a bylaw to amend the site-specific provisions of the highway commercial exception number 13 zone as they pertain to the retained lands of consent application B17 2019 and B18 2019, and further to rezone the severed lands of consent applications B17 2019 and B18 2019 from highway commercial exception number 13 zone to local commercial exception number 2 zone. Is there a mover?
I'll move it.
Councillor Anderson? Is there a seconder? Councillor Tadman?
I'd second it, yes.
Is there any further discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Councillor Ron Anderson,
Yes.
Councillor Mark Bateman,
Yes.
Councillor Doug LeBlanc,
Yes.
Councillor Emily Rowley,
Yes.
Councillor Mary Tadman,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Laura Vink,
Yes.
Mayor Brian Ostrander.
Yes.
Carried.
Thank you. And our final item in our statutory public meeting is with regard to 15051 Telephone Road. The purpose of the public meeting is to request a decision of council for proposed consents for the following application, file number B02 2020. The owner is Banas Family Holdings. The applicant is Krista Libman. The location is Part Lot 7, Concession 3, 15051 Telephone Road. Mr. Ty, by what method and on what date was notice of this consent application given?
Notice that this application was sent by first-class prepaid mail on May 29th, 2020 to all property owners within 60 meters. Notice was also circulated to all agencies under the Planning Act. In addition, a sign was erected on the property.
Thank you, Mr. Ty. Would you please explain the background regarding this consent application?
This application is requesting permission to create an easement for utilities across the portion of the subject property in order to recognize existing Bell telecommunication lines and tower. As proposed, the easement would provide for the following. It would have a width of just over 4 meters or 13.19 feet and comprise a total land area of 0.57 acres. Both the tower and the infrastructure are already in place.
Thank you, Mr. Ty. And does the owner or applicant wish to make any comments? And I think Ms. Libben was here with us.
Yes, I'm here. I don't have any comments, subject to any questions any of the council members may have.
Thank you. So when I get to that portion, I'll just ask you to make some notes. And if you would like to answer those questions in your final comments, which you'll be permitted to do, you can do that at that time.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Madam Clerk, I believe you mentioned that there was someone present who had questions or comments. Mr. Richardson.
Yes.
Mr. Richardson, would you like to ask your question or make your comment now?
Hi, thank you. I just was needing a clarification of exactly what are we running in the ground to the tower?
Mr. Ty, do you know what's under the ground?
Not precisely, Your Worship, although I would assume it's the electrical connections that would transmit the information that the tower receives. Other than that, perhaps the applicant can clarify.
Unfortunately, I'm not able to provide any further clarification. That's what I would assume as well.
So, Mr. Richardson, what we have in front of us is information that suggests it is a telecommunications tower. So it would be the wiring necessary to transmit and receive information, as well as any electrical to support that purpose.
Okay, that's kind of understand that, the generics of it. I think it would probably be in everyone's best interest to truly understand what is being run in the ground for what network. Currently, there is a network in place. As you know, the tower has existed for many years. So if we're upgrading the infrastructure to that tower, we should probably understand what it is that we're upgrading to. Fiber network would have to be probably in place if it's not already. So therefore, it's most likely fiber optics that is going to the tower. Do we know if the tower is being changed in any specific ways, the technology on the tower being changed? Is Brighton aware if the tower is being changed, the technology? Because if you're going to change the backbone, you're probably changing the technology that's going to be receiving and sending in the air. So we'd probably need to know a little bit more about what's being put in the ground.
Sure. Mr. Ty, do you have any comments with regard to that?
Not specifically. However, in an effort to clarify, the application before council is simply requesting permission to create an easement for the tower site, as well as the existing infrastructure under the ground. With respect to the tower itself and any connections, electrical or otherwise, that is governed by the federal Canada. That is not specifically before council as part of this application.
Okay, Mr. Ty. Mr. Richardson, do you have any other comments or questions?
No, not at all. Just concerned citizen wondering what we're putting in the air.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
that. Are there any questions or comments regarding the proposed consent from members of council? Councillor LeBlanc.
Yes, through your chair, to Gerald. Do we ever get information on what they're putting in the ground? Because let's say like Stony Point Road, they just did it and they put their cables in. Do we ever get information what they're laying in the ground?
Through the chair, not to my knowledge, I have not. In all the various communication towers I've been involved with, I have not seen specific information of that nature.
Councillor Bateman.
I just want to clarify, this is just for stuff going underground. This isn't the building of a new tower that's going on this site, or is it?
I believe the tower is already in existence, Mr. Ty.
That's my understanding as well. It's to recognize what's existing there now.
Councillor Bateman?
Just a follow-up, does anybody know whether this is to equip it with 5G or is it a simple 4G?
I think we've determined we're not sure, Mr. Ty.
No idea.
Any further questions from members of council? And does the owner applicant wish to make any final comments?
No, Mr. Mayor, just to say that again, I do not know the specifics of the wires, but that the question before council today is for the easement.
Thank you. Mr. Ty, do you have any final comments?
Nothing further, Your Worship.
Thank you, and I will ask council the same as before. If anyone does not wish to make a decision, please indicate so now. I'll read the motion and look for a mover and a seconder. The motion is that, or will be, that this report regarding consent application. Councillor Tadman, are you asking to make a question?
No.
Okay.
I'm getting ready with this goofy thing to actually move it, because I have to do the opposite instead of mute and unmute.
Understood.
That takes a lot for my brain to figure out.
I'm gonna carry on reading this motion then. That this report regarding consent application B02-2020 as prepared by the municipal planning consultants be received, and that council of the municipality of Brighton grant provisional consent to application B02-2020, subject to the following conditions: that the geospatial data with respect to the subject lands be submitted to the satisfaction of the municipality, and that 3 paper copies and a digital copy of a registrable survey for the easement and the appropriate deed transfer granting legal access in favor of others be prepared and deposited with the municipal clerk within 1 year of the granting of consent. Is that moved by you, Councillor Tadman? Is that what I?
Yes.
Thank you. Is there a seconder?
I'll second it.
It was moved by Councillor Tadman, seconded by Councillor LeBlanc. Is there any further discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Councillor Ron Anderson,
Yes.
Councillor Mark Bateman,
Yes.
Councillor Doug LeBlanc,
Yes.
Councillor Emily Rowley,
Yes.
Councillor Mary Tadman,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Laura Vink,
Yes.
Mayor Brian Ostrander.
Yes.
Carried.
Thank you. Our next motion will be that council move out of the statutory public meeting, June 15th, 2020 at 2:59 p.m. I'll need a mover. I have it moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Deputy Mayor Vink. Is there any discussion on that? Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Councillor Ron Anderson,
Yes.
Councillor Mark Bateman,
Yes.
Councillor Doug LeBlanc,
Yes.
Councillor Emily Rowley,
Yes.
Councillor Mary Tadman,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Laura Vink,
Yes.
Mayor Brian Ostrander.
Yes.
It's carried.
Thank you. And so we'll move into staff reports. Our first report is from the Planning Department with regard to Roslyn Estates subdivision and the extension for phase 1. And I assume, Mr. Ty, this is your report. Would you like to speak to it? Do you have anything to add or highlight?
The report is rather brief. It's simply presenting to council a request received by the planning department, by the town, regarding the proposed extension to an existing pre-servicing agreement in order to complete the works, the deficiencies in phase 1 and phase 2A. The request of an extension from May 30th, and staff are prepared to support an extension to August 31st.
Thank you, Mr. Ty. The motion will read that council receives the report regarding the Roslyn Estates subdivision as prepared by the municipal planning consultant. And further, that notwithstanding provisions of the pre-servicing agreement dated November 4th, 2019, council hereby grants an extension to 1751819 Ontario Incorporated from May 20, 2020 to not later than August 31st, 2020 for the purpose of completing the outstanding deficiencies as cited in Schedule K of said agreement. Is there a mover? Councillor Rowley, is there a seconder?
I'll second.
Councillor Bateman? Is there any discussion? Deputy Mayor?
Just for clarification, to the planner, if he has any info, the letter says due to unforeseen circumstances. Are we clear on why they're not able to get it done at this time? Just gives us a better idea of whether or not this is feasible or not.
Mr. Ty?
Through the chair, I'm not able to further elaborate on unspecified reasons. We have in our report indicated, of course, the adverse impacts of COVID-19, which is affecting the entire business community, continues to affect the entire business community. Also, by virtue of this agreement being struck in early November of 2019, there's a possibility, a considerable possibility that there could have been difficulty encountered with attempting to line up contractors at the time. When we met with the municipal solicitor, we had a fairly comprehensive discussion on the request, and it's the position of staff to support the request at least until August 31st, as opposed to what was originally requested, which I believe was the end of October.
Thank you. That makes sense.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments from members of council? Madam Clerk, will you please call the vote?
Councillor Ron Anderson,
Yes.
Councillor Mark Bateman,
Yes.
Councillor Doug LeBlanc,
Yes.
Councillor Emily Rowley,
Yes.
Councillor Mary Sadman,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Laura Vink,
Yes.
Mayor Brian Ostrander.
Yes.
Carried.
Our next staff report is with regard to council planning committee meeting updates. Madam Clerk, this is your report. Do you have anything to add or highlight?
I don't until council gives me some questions.
So the motion will read that council receives the staff report regarding the council planning committee meetings update, and further that council approves the following summer schedule for council meetings. Council planning Monday, July 20th, 2020. Council planning Monday, August 17th, 2020. Is there a mover? Councillor Rowley? Is there a seconder? Deputy Mayor? I'll open the floor for questions or comments. Deputy Mayor.
My question is, can we move back to evening meetings? I'm quite busy with my work. I don't know if anyone else is back ramped up, but for me, it would be ideal to go back to evening meetings if the rest of council and staff is able to accommodate that.
We don't have a time set on this motion specifically.
No.
Does the procedural bylaw speak to the time of the meeting? No, it's silent on that. Good. So I'm fine moving back to evening meetings. Is that problematic for any member of council? No. No. So I think we could probably do that. Councillor Tadman, you have a question?
I do, Mayor. When COVID was announced that it was pandemic, and I believe at that time that we gave certain authority to you and Mr. Castleman and probably the deputy mayor or whatever. When are we going to return to like our normal making decisions, because I feel, and I only speak personally, I feel like I'm out of the loop all the time when people ask me questions that they see on Facebook, which I don't go on. It's a poor way to have to communicate, especially when I have to say I don't have a clue. And it seems that people on Facebook know more about what's going on than I do. So I'm just wondering, when can we go back to being normal, whatever normal happens to be next?
I think we're eyeballing September for that, Madam Clerk.
Yeah, September. That way then we can make sure that we have all the social distancing, and it seems to be opening up more and more now. Like we have funerals and marriages that are opened up to 50 for outdoors. We're just waiting to see, because right now we're limited to 10 inside. If we had our live stream cameras all hooked up at our AV, then we could definitely have everybody back in, our council members, and do everything else live stream for the public. But right now we don't have the AV system completed yet. We're hoping it should be done for the 1st of September.
And I see in your report that it looks like committee meetings are going to start back up for September
In
as well.
September, we're going to be doing virtual meetings in September for committees, for certain committees. Yeah, ones that have asked.
Deputy Mayor?
I agree. I often feel I'm out of the loop too, and it's not because of communication. I think it's very difficult to have our meetings the way we are, and we're not seeing each other. We're not getting together with our committees. It's just things are disjointed, no doubt. I do believe, and Mary can correct me, I think she was referring to delegated authority. Were you not, Mary, when you were talking about?
Yes.
Yes. So little off topic, but not really. Maybe I think that was a question as well.
I think it's likely we could suspend delegated authority anytime, but I would look to Mr. Castleman and the clerk and the treasurer, especially given the fact that we're able to meet this way. I think delegated authorities were provided because we weren't sure how this was going to work or if it was going to work. So, Mr. Castleman, is there any threat to the municipality if we suspended delegated authorities and moved back to council making all the good decisions we make? Bob said absolutely not, only because I'm now, thanks to Zoom, able to read lips, everybody. So, Mr. Castleman, for the July 20th meeting, could we have a staff report talking about what's happened over delegated authority and making a recommendation that council suspend delegated authority and move whatever the right words are to move back to normal decision making for councils? Thank you. Mr. Castleman said sure, just so everyone knows.
Careful.
Any other questions on the report and or the motion? Councillor Rowley.
Thank you, Mayor. So I'm guessing that we will have only one meeting in July and one, so we will deal with all of council business as well as all of our planning issues?
Yeah.
That's the plan. So normally in the summers, we would have a Monday meeting for the regular council and a Wednesday meeting for planning. And the intention is to do them the way we've done this meeting, which is planning and regular meeting together, just to try to get it over with all at once. If the meeting it starts to go on too long, we can certainly have a discussion about recessing the meeting and meeting again another day to finish up the meeting. We don't want a 5 or 6 hour meeting by Zoom. I find 20 minutes is exhausting. So I think we could all agree to that, and we would figure out another day to move forward on those items.
That would be my concern, that these would be loaded agendas and we'd be sitting here for a few hours. And as you said, sitting here for 2 or 3 hours seems very tiring. But I guess we will just wait to see what the agenda holds then for July. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor LeBlanc.
Yes, through you, Mayor, for the clerk. So by these meetings, so it shows that we're going back to like a normality schedule, because this is what we used to have in the past.
No, typically in the past for summer months, we would have one council meeting and then one planning meeting. But since we're doing combined meetings right now, I combined them both together, the same as what we've been doing. So then we would only have one meeting per month. Just for July and August.
With the hope and the intent, the goal to move back to
Regular.
regular meetings, actual sitting down in front of each other meetings in September. But we'll have to see where the protocols are, the public health protocols are, and what the comfort level for council is. We certainly don't want to be putting anyone into a position they're not comfortable with. Councillor Tadman.
Thank you, Mayor. My biggest concern of all, and I'm sure that Candace and whoever else is involved with actually coming to one meeting a month, my main concern is that it would be too packed, and you've already talked about that and long, and maybe have to move to another night. But what also concerns me for those who only are interested in planning, it's hardly fair that they have to sit through a boring council meeting. And people like us, we just love it so much that we get high on it, but other people don't. And I personally would like to see council one meeting and planning another, as we did last year, and I think the year before.
We can do that. It's set already in our calendars to be council on the 20th and planning on the 22nd. I mean, we can keep it the same.
Yes, that's what I'd like to do.
Deputy
I
Mayor?
agree.
Deputy Mayor?
I agree too. You know, I find these meetings difficult. Our discussion isn't the same. I would prefer, I know it's a bit more work, but to have two separate meetings, I think that will be more effective that way. And it's better for those people who need to attend as well.
Very well. Councillor Anderson, you had your hand up, and then I'm going to go to Councillor Rowley and Deputy Mayor Vink to talk about amending this motion. Councillor Anderson.
I'd just like to ask, I would think that planning might be getting a little bit more workload as we proceed. And maybe Mr. Ty can tell us, is he seeing more activity coming forward with planning, not issues, but planning process that we should be focusing more on and taking the time to get on with the business of the planning as well as our. So based on that, I would agree with Mary Tadman and there that we should separate the two and focus on both separately. But
Fair
Mr.
enough.
Ty, perhaps you could answer that little
It's not
question.
here.
I think if Mr. Ty hadn't wisely already left our meeting, he could answer that.
Oh.
But maybe Mr. Walsh, having been here a whole week, would be well versed on what's happening in our planning file and be able to answer that question. Mr. Walsh?
There we go.
Well, through the mayor, I'll do my best. Yeah, so my assessment after the first week is that we do have quite a few subdivisions on the go, and that with each one, there's always some review of conditions and provisions in subdivision agreements. And I think my first Tuesday here, I was on a teleconference call for about 2 hours dealing with one subdivision that hasn't come before council yet for draft approval. So I'm really getting the strong sense that things are very busy here. So I would just give a general head nod in the direction of the discussion thus far that perhaps having a separate planning agenda would have some merit in having some focused discussion separate from the more general council agenda items.
Thank you. That's good.
Thank you. So Councillor Rowley as the mover and Deputy Mayor Vink as the seconder. If we change this to read, just the bullet points to read, Council Monday, July 20th, 2020, and Planning Wednesday, July 22nd, 2020, and Council Monday, August 17th, 2020, and Planning Wednesday, August 19th, 2020. Is that a fair amendment?
It is for me, for sure. Thank you.
The mayor is nodding her head.
Yes.
And for staff's purposes, those meetings would take place at 6:30 p.m. Is that, I'm hearing what council wants to do is migrate back to evening meetings? So that's what
Yes.
that's what we will plan for. Let me just make a note here on these motions. Any further discussion? So Madam Clerk, will you please call the vote?
Councillor Ron Anderson,
Yes.
Councillor Mark Bateman,
Yes.
Councillor Doug LeBlanc,
Yes.
Councillor Emily Raleigh,
Yes.
Councillor Mary Tagman,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Laura Vink,
Yes.
Mayor Brian Ostrander,
Yes,
carried.
thank you. Our next report is from the Economic Development Communications Manager with regard to open air street mall and patio extensions. Mr. Hagerman, do you have anything to add or highlight on your report?
Obviously a lot going on there. I'd just like to sort of summarize everything by saying there's a lot of skepticism for in consumer behavior right now. I was part of a task group that looked at small business for Northumberland County. And I believe there was the survey results, I hope were sent around to all of council. I believe they were, but they were basically, one of the questions was, are you going to, shop in retail as frequently as you once did? And pretty much it was like a resounding 90% no, I will not. But then, the second part to that question was, would you like to still support local? And it was 90% yes. So all we're doing here is looking for ways to increase some consumer exposure to our local businesses. Is it a guaranteed success? By no means, no. I can't sit here and tell you that it's guaranteed this is going to work on the street mall end of things, but it's an opportunity to try it out once. And if it went really well, maybe there's a discussion to do it again. And if it, didn't go well, we would never talk about it again, or at least for now. Just like to drive the point home that it's not an event. There would be nothing on this day that would, there wouldn't be children's activities. There wouldn't be any sort of demonstrations or anything you would, when you come to mind of an Apple Fest or a street fair, anything like that. That's not the point of this. The point of this would be to close down the street, make things accessible for the customers, and get people downtown in a physical distancing manner. And to go with that, we probably need to be further along in the reopening pattern to pull this off. So something that probably can't happen well in stage 2, but the hope is maybe we move along later in July or early July even, and maybe we can pull this off in stage 3. So just a few comments. I know I was a bit long-winded, but there's a lot going on there. So I'm sure there's lots of questions. So
I'm going to read the motion and get a mover and a seconder, and then I'll open the floor. But I want council to know that after we receive the reports, there is in the motion notices essentially that council make motions with regard to the other 2 items. So there will be 2 other motions, one with regard to the extension of patios and one with regard to the open air street mall. So I'd like to read the first motion and pass it as essentially receiving Ben's report, and then we'll read another motion about the other 2 items and have more robust discussion if we need to specifically. So the first motion will be that council receive this report for information and to make a motion where restaurant patio bylaws allow Brighton restaurants to extend their patio. As well, that council receive this report for information and make a motion that the municipality will move forward on planning an open-air street mall on Main Street while inviting businesses to participate whose business is not on Main Street. So I'll need a mover for that.
I'll move it.
It's moved by Councillor Anderson and seconded by Councillor Rowley. And so that's essentially us receiving Ben's reports, and then there'll be another motion on one of the other two specific items in the report, so we can have discussion on those items. Is there any discussion on the report itself? Madam Clerk, will you please? Sorry, Councillor Bateman, did you have a question? Keeping in mind that I am going to have a motion about the street mall and about the patio separately. Okay, all right. So Madam Clerk, will you please call the vote?
Councillor Ron Anderson,
Yes.
Councillor Mark Bateman. Mark,
You're muted, Mark.
Yes.
Councillor Doug LeBlanc,
Yes.
Councillor Emily Rowley,
Yes.
Councillor Mary Chapman,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Laura Vink,
Yes.
Mayor Brian Ostrander,
Yes.
carried.
So the next motion is with regard to patios, and it reads that council authorize the extension of patios for licensed sale of alcohol, and further that council direct staff to work with restaurateurs to extend patios, and further that council authorize exceptions to bylaws for 120 days for patio extensions, and further that staff provide a report to council on any bylaw exceptions.
Written.
Sorry, Madam Clerk?
We don't have any bylaws
Well,
for
perfect.
patios.
Then that'll make the report much easier.
Yep.
Is there a mover for that?
I will.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Vink, seconded by Councillor LeBlanc. Is there any discussion on the extension of patios for restaurants? Deputy Mayor.
First of all, I just want to comment on nice haircut, Ben. But you know, it's really hard at this time to figure out what's right to do and what's not right to do. And I certainly think that, of course, this comes at an expense to these restaurants, but I think it's the only way they're going to survive because currently people can't go and dine in. So I certainly support this and trust that, you know, staff are going to come up with the right provisions to make it doable to protect ourselves, but also to help out the businesses.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Bateman.
I like this idea. I sent some questions to Mr. Hagerman, and he was kind enough to answer them because my question was, is it pertain to those that just have patios now, or is it for restaurants that don't have a patio and wish to build one? And he said it would be for both. And the other part of my question was around accessibility, because if you extend it under the sidewalk, you still have to follow the Accessibility Act, and he clarified that. But my question I just thought of now is, if you have somebody that extends the patio or somebody that builds an all completely new one so they can take part in this, is the municipality responsible for inspecting that construction to ensure it's safe for the people?
I think the answer is yes to that question. They would have to, if they were constructing a patio, they would have to apply for a building permit, and we would then be required to inspect that. My comment to staff the other day when we were discussing this was, you know, certainly let's make sure we're complying and everyone's complying with all the rules and regulations, but also let's make it easy for everyone to comply with the rules and regulations. We want to find a way to say yes and not put up roadblocks at this stage. So staff seems to be pretty clear on that one. Councillor Tadman.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, we already have patios that are well fenced and serviced, and we've never had a problem with any of them that I've ever heard of. And I know that staff, health and safety concerns are always up front, but also the health inspectors usually check them at least once a year. They would have to meet fire codes, everything else. So I don't think we have a problem here. You can't build one on a sidewalk, we know that. So, and if some of the places just don't have any room for one, so that can't happen. So I fully support this, and I really hope that it works as well as it has for other people with patios.
Thank you, Councillor Tadman. Councillor Anderson?
I'm fine, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. Councillor Bateman?
Just to follow, like Mary, I think this is a great idea, and I don't know if we can add it onto this motion. Is it something we could consider to help in the process, you know, the application process for a permit and possibly waiving that fee, because this is all about help, and we're going to tack a fee on to help them. It seems kind of counterproductive.
Does anyone see any huge issue with that? Mr. Castleman?
No.
All right. Councillor Tadman?
No, in fact, I think that Councillor Bateman's come up with a good suggestion there. Let's do what we can for the little bit of revenue we get.
Anyone else? Councillor LeBlanc?
Yeah, I think this is a great idea, and possibly if the tourists start coming, we can keep them outside and have more patios. Because if you go down, you look at Port Hope, they have these patios all over the sidewalks. So it's a good idea. It's a good try. I think it's a great try. I'm all for it.
So, Mr. Castleman, well, first I'll look to Deputy Mayor Vink as the mover and Councillor LeBlanc as the seconder. Is this something you want added to this motion?
I would say yes. Yes.
Okay. So, Mr. Castleman, would the addition be something like, and further that council waive fees, building fees for the extension of patios?
Yes.
In permit.
They would still have to apply for their permit though and be inspected.
Yes.
I don't think we need further discussion, Council. Councillor Bateman.
Just tongue in cheek, perhaps we can hold the August meeting on these patios.
Yeah.
Only if you're paying.
It's no good. We can't have a drink.
Castleman's paying.
There you go.
Mr. Castleman is wisely staying silent, but not muted, interestingly enough. Any further discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Councillor Ron Anderson,
Yes.
Councillor Mark Bateman,
Yes.
Councillor Doug LeBlanc,
Yes.
Councillor Emily Raleigh,
Yes.
Councillor Mary Tadman,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Laura Vink,
Yes.
Mayor Brian Ostrander.
Yes.
Carried.
And the next motion will read the council authorized staff to proceed with an open air street mall in partnership with the local business community. I'll need a mover. Councillor Rowley, is there a seconder?
I will.
Councillor Anderson. And comments or questions from members of council? Councillor Tadman.
Thank you, Mayor. Thought long and hard about all of this, and as you know, last year I brought it forward and council supported having the Quinny Access bus run on Sundays so that more people could access different locations, and that supported the downtown as well as a lot of other locations, brought people in from Presqu'île, and also helped the farmers market to the north and on anywhere along the route. There's a lot of businesses that are struggling, not just the downtown. And so I personally do not think it's fair to just consider the downtown. And especially those times when the 401 is closed down and we know what happens then. So all the people that are outside of there especially, but even there, in the downtown, the transports especially will just reroute, and there could be a lot of business lost. Say, for instance, if you look at the West End, there's Cheers, Cricklewood coming down. I don't think they'll be buying a trailer, but they might, I don't know. But all the way through to the other end of town. And I think we can't just be supporting one particular group of people, as much as I do most of my shopping downtown, and people can vouch for that. But I think we need to look at everybody. And I think there's a better plan than to shut down the main street. And I do believe that we can use, and I know that it's been well supported again this year by Councillor LeBlanc to run this Sunday Quinte Access bus. And the more people that want to use that bus, we can get sponsors to have that run from early morning till later on in the day.
Thank you, Councillor Tabman. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. Yeah, you know, I mean, I'm all for supporting business. I do have some concerns about this initiative. And I've heard a lot of negativity about it. And so I guess my main concerns are accessibility. When the streets are shut down, people who have accessibility issues do have to travel further from where they've parked. Also, parking has been a concern, but another one is even visibility. People driving through town, they're going to see the stores, they can park out front, they can go and shop. I'm not sure if this is the answer. If the majority of council is in favor, then I will vote in favor. I haven't heard from enough of the businesses that are in favor, and that's my concern. And maybe I'm wrong, so please correct me if I'm wrong. I just want to make sure this is the right thing to do for our businesses, if we're going to do it.
Or Mr. Hagerman, it's my understanding we have a letter of support from the DBIA. Is that true?
Yeah, there's a letter of support from the DBIA, as well as the chamber has been communicated with. They will be providing a letter of support as well. So are 100% of the businesses potentially in support of it? No, but certainly the comments I've received is it's a step to try and see what we can do. From what I understand, things have been very quiet in all parts of the business community, and anything that adds any extra marketability is better than what we're doing now. So that's sort of how I look at it from a business perspective. And you know, to add to that, this won't be successful if the businesses, especially the ones that are on Main Street, don't provide a little extra self-promotion and let people know that this is happening. So obviously the buy-in is crucial, but we can't force it on people to do that extra promotion. But hopefully they do, and this goes well. But like I said, it's one chance to maybe try it, and if it doesn't go well, we just never speak to it again.
Thank you, Mr. Hagerman. Councillor Anderson.
I think it's a good initiative, and I've been through a lot of the comments that we've social media has really been pretty active with comments on it, and they're very good comments, and a lot has to do with transport, closing the roads and the safety of closing those roads. But these are all discussed for Apple Fest, for other events, street dances. All these things have happened before. This is not new. We're talking one day at the moment, I believe. I hope we're still on that same page. One day, a test, basically a test, and it might be a good test. And if it doesn't go right, we certainly aren't going to do it again. But I think things like that need to be planned out well. You still need approval from a number of agencies yet to go ahead with this, and that they will be addressed One thing I've heard about is these other businesses that aren't on Main Street will be invited to take part. How will they take part and what will be allotted to them? In my own mind, when you get your marketing mind or get going, you think of groups like the Cotterington Farmers Market might be interested in having a market on that particular date, not to change what they're doing, but also so to bring in some good drawing cards, and they're an excellent drawing card. They're very popular, but maybe, but I'd like to hear before making a final decision, how are we going to address, how will it be addressed to those other businesses from outside, and what type of businesses are we talking about? Opening up a booth or a table. So if Ben could explain that a little bit.
Hagerman?
The concept currently would be to open up or close Veterans Way and to make that a bit of a vendor area for any businesses that are not on Main Street that want to take part in it. So they could move their products or have a little exposure area free of charge. We would create, utilize, generally speaking, the same type of regulations that the Farmers Market Ontario have done to get their farmers markets up and running, to ensure physical distancing and making sure that lines could be in order and the booths weren't too close to one another. I know that is a lot of extra work for potential businesses that aren't on the Main Street to come move to a second location for a day, but it's kind of the best we can do as of right now to include as many businesses as possible. So that's kind of the vision around that concept. Certainly, if there's another side street or the utilization of a Memorial Park or something that people deem to be maybe a better concept or making more sense, I'm open to suggestions. But we want to make sure there's a space that the other businesses can set up. The Codrington Farmers Market has such a strong successful track record that I don't know if infringing on what they do on Sundays is something I want to do at this point. If there's a partnership down the road that maybe we can work on, certainly I'm open to it, but I'm not sure we want to go there right at the start yet. We want to do our best to get our permanent businesses the exposure they need during this difficult time.
Thank you, Mr. Hagerman. Councillor Bateman? And I muted everyone. We were getting some weird feedback, so you're probably muted.
Thank you. I agree with some of the points, both from Deputy Mayor Vink and from Councillor Tadman. Like, I think I feel the business is pain because my spouse has a supplementary business outside of her work that's probably been impacted 80 to 90%. So I understand people wanting to generate. I'm just trying to I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around shutting down Main Street, and that's somehow going to attract Brightonians to come to Main Street. It's hard to compare that to Applefest because Applefest is an event. Have we put any thought behind, you look at Prince Edward Square, there's the whole strip of parking that is municipal, and we could possibly approach the Legion because they're not currently open, and there's a whole strip that's parallel to ours with a access point between the two that is accessible to any in a wheelchair, a mobility scooter, that they can go back and forth from both, and maybe have the downtown businesses allow them to put stuff on their sidewalk, still have the parking, and still keep the street open so that everybody can visit all the stores. And then if you want to bring people uptown, utilize those other areas where it doesn't impact traffic or mobility.
Thank you. I'm sure Ben will consider those comments moving forward without Councillor Rowley.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I think the DBIA wants to really show appreciation to Ben for really trying to figure out something to support and keep Main Street a bit more viable than it is. there's still a lot of details. This is very early stages, and as Ben said earlier, it might be well into July before we can even do anything, and then depending on what comes down the pipe from the province, we might be shutting this down right away. But it's just an opportunity. It's just to give something. But like I say, there are still ideas in the very early stages. There are concerns from Main Street shopkeepers as well as to what shutting down the street is going to look like, and is it a bigger risk than not shutting it down? So yeah, at this stage, I would just say if there's an opportunity to kind of open the door and allow for these ideas to come to fruition, that would be great. Like I said, we will probably be meeting by the time we do this.
Thank you, Councillor Rowley. Councillor LeBlanc. You're muted, Doug.
Mayor, through you, I was going to ask Emily Riley the question she just answered, and I agree with the deputy mayor. And then I will go with it if it's the will of council. But the thing is, doing nothing is not an option. They want help, and let's help them.
Thank you, Councillor Tadman.
Thank you, Mayor. And to all council and Ben and whoever else happens to be involved in the decision. And I think it's Councillor Rowley who's representing the DBIA. The question that was asked to me, what is Main Street? Is it only from Thompson's to the corner of Rexall? And for me, it's more than that, even though it turns into Elizabeth Street. I know all about that. I've been here long enough to know the streets. But I don't find this idea being inclusive of other businesses, and we need to help all of them.
Thank you, Councillor Tadman. Deputy Mayor, did you have your hand up?
Sorta. I just keep going back and forth on this. And I know we are trying to do something for all of Brighton. I've heard the ads on the radio to come to Brighton, explore our parks, that sort of thing. So we certainly are doing something, and I don't know that doing nothing is better than doing something when we're not sure that the something is the right thing. So again, if the majority of council is going to agree with this, I will agree, and I trust that staff is going to keep meeting these different, the DBIA or the chamber, or working on this until it's feasible to do. And like we said, we're going to try it once, and if it's not effective, then I guess just for me, be cognizant of accessibility, and I think that's just really important in this, because we do represent everyone in this town, so municipality.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Is
Councillor Anderson. You're muted, Ron.
I thought you had control there, Mayor. You hear me there?
I can.
I think this is maybe more of a phase 3 initiative, and we don't know when that is. I realize that, and it's summer, and we'd like to be able to do this in a nice time of year. But how many people are allowed in these small? And they're not all small, but in these small shops, how many people are allowed in those shops, and with distancing and that. It's not only distancing on the street. You want to get in. If a lot of people come, which we're trying to market that type of way, if you can't get in to shop, then that's going to be another negative. And if you can't find parking, and if all those other things that we're talking about. So, I'm just throwing that out there. Maybe the initiative is good. Maybe we should do the trial, make this data a trial basis, and then we can spin from that. We've had some experience how to groom the next phase, but I think the real business will come in phase 3 before you're going to see it under the conditions that we've got to work with now. That might be the thing to do, and for our municipality, that I'm not even looking outside and saying what others are doing, because we are unique, and thank goodness we are. So That's what I believe. And then the other thing is, Ben, you made a really good point somewhere. This is going to take some manpower, people power, and volunteers even. And have we got those resources to put this on? Because I know the great effort that goes into things like Applefest and any of the events. This isn't an event, but it's certainly going to take volunteers and manpower to make it happen. So you feel comfortable with that, Ben?
Mr. Hagerman?
No. I mean, I guess I have a lot of questions in my own mind as to how we're going to pull this off. But I think, bringing the internal team together won't be a problem. It's certainly going to be, if we do need day of volunteers, how that's going to look in coordination with following COVID-19 guidelines when it comes to, potential volunteers. So yeah, there's a lot of challenges there. I guess when it comes to the accessibility concerns, yeah, I mean, we don't want to negate people's from coming and supporting the day if they don't have the ability to get there. I guess just wondering, what we do on Applefest, because it's kind of the same premise to keep accessibility standards for events like that. So I would probably be looking to some folks that are well versed in Applefest to get an understanding of how we could keep accessibility for folks going off that. So to summarize Councillor Anderson's question, I mean, I think internally I'm not too concerned. It's just going to be when we get to day of operations, how it's going to look, how many people do we need on the site, and so on. I think once the day would be up and running, it would run itself after the closure was started, and then getting the reopening done. So obviously we're looking at a Saturday. Does that mean overtime for staff? Probably. So some other financial things to think about there too.
Thank you, Mr. Hagerman. Councillor Tadman.
Thank you once again, Mayor. I hate to be the negative person here, but I have to speak out, because how fair is this to other businesses? And I had that question to Ben before Ben mentioned the cost. How fair is that to other business all along the routes? If we're going to throw, and it's going to be costly for overtime, for extra policing, everything. How fair is that to the other residents? Why aren't we spending our money in whatever way you can come up with a good idea, where I know we don't have public transit, but we do have the opportunity to use the Quinte Access bus, which is very equipped for the COVID, and we can bring people in. The ordinary resident that lives here, I shouldn't call them ordinary, residents that live here know how to park. They know where they want to go downtown. I personally, lots of times park in Sobeys, do the whole route and then leave, or in the municipal parking lot. It's, if we're trying to encourage people to come in, that creates a problem that I don't think we need to even think about. So I will not be supporting this. And further, I want, and I'm sure the downtown people know, because they see me enough to know that I do support them money-wise all the time.
Thank you, Councillor Tadman. Is there any further discussion? Councillor Bateman. You're muted, Mark.
I'm told I sound better when I'm muted. Just a couple questions. First, if we went to the open air concept, with or without the Main Street, however you look at it, has anybody checked into the responsibility, the liability? Because when people go into the shops are in every municipality, they have to have their regulations in place on the social distancing, the signage and everything else. But once we go out, we've all seen what Applefest looks like. This wouldn't be to the same scale with the same number of people. But how are you going to control people not staying 6 feet apart, not staying, you know, if it's still 10 or less, you know, that's an awful shift in responsibility. The other part I wanted to ask, in the report, the way it's written, it says, you know, to shut down Main Street. Is it possible that we could take that wording out and make it more exploratory? Because we're all talking about different options, so this doesn't seem so etched in stone that it's shutting down Main Street.
So the report speaks to shutting down Main Street, but the motion just speaks to an open air street mall in partnership with the business community. So that leaves it open for other concepts. If Mr. Hagerman in his discovery process thinks that shifting this elsewhere is a better idea, or if it also leaves it open if he thinks that closing Main Street for this purpose is a good idea. So I like the idea of keeping it open, just so that we can, because even if we decide to close Main Street down one weekend and say, okay, well that maybe that was sort of successful or half success. What happens if we do close the municipal parking lot behind the Legion the weekend after? And we could try different things as we explore how best to make something like this work. Maybe it won't work at all. I don't know.
Can I ask one follow-up?
Sure can.
With what you just said, is it possible then, if we vote on this and the wording is that in the one section, and so if Mr. Hagerman comes back, can we have it so that it comes before council before the decision is made that the street's closed? Because the way it is now, if I vote on this, it could come back where we don't close the street or we do close the street. And I would really like to have it the other way, that whenever the final idea comes forward, then we make a decision as a group to close it or not close it on a specific idea.
Well, we would have to have a special meeting of council, because I think likely we would want to move forward with this prior to our next council meeting, because our next council meeting is until July 20th. And I'm okay with that if everyone else is. Councilor Rowley?
Thank you, Mayor. I kind of want to agree with Mark, because my concern is if we don't support this, and I'm certainly not here to sway those on how to vote, but if it came to where we don't support this, we've obviously just thrown all the options away. So if there was a way to either amend the motion that we take a look and review and research other options for something for downtown, regardless of what it looks like, maybe that would be a better way to move this forward. As I said, my concern is if we turn this totally down, if we don't support any of this, then regardless of what Ben has worked at or what options are still out there, or what conversation we can still have with, regardless of it being just DBIA businesses or businesses in the municipality, to bring them to do what we can, whether it's maybe just spend all the money on promotion, I'm not sure. But my concern is if we turn it totally down, then everything's off the table. We just offered, turning down fees for those restaurants who might want to build a patio in order to keep restaurants open. There's no use having restaurants open if we don't have Main Street.
So Councilor Rowley, you're the mover of this, and Councilor Anderson, you're the seconder. We could write this motion so it reads, the direct staff or council authorized staff to proceed with the planning of an open air street mall in partnership with local business community and report back to council at a special meeting.
Ben, does that help you out at all? Does that give you direction? My concern is Ben has to deal with our DBA, and as I said, so far that's been a very open and positive conversation. But I want council to support Ben in his and what he's in his hard work to keep this moving forward for downtown.
Mr. Hagerman?
Yeah, I guess I would just like to say that I don't have all the answers in this situation. It's certainly just something that a variety of other municipalities are looking at doing. Some are for sure doing it in July and August. And if there's a hybrid of this, I'm willing to continue thinking about it. If we believe that our business community is spread apart and and very diversified, and something like this just isn't in the cards for Brighton, then maybe we can put more more emphasis on shopping local type promotions. I'm not sure, but I guess, you know, if you as council give me the go ahead to look at something like this, maybe not on a contingent basis to shut down Main Street, then, you know, it certainly makes things a little more complicated. So I guess just keep that in mind as we try to move forward on this. Because I'm having a hard time understanding what a hybrid version of this looks like. And again, getting back to safety. If we're trying to get more people down on the sidewalks and we're still leaving the street open, it just could create a little bit more, I guess, logistical things in regards to safety.
Councillor Anderson. You're muted, Ron.
I go back to what I said. It's a great effort, and I think we all are heart in the right place, but we're in phase 2, and it's not, and the comments I understand, people are uneasy about this. People in that survey that you talked about, I think people were speaking from speaking one way, but they're actually doing another. I see people shopping all day long, and they certainly aren't saying they're staying home. They're avoiding shopping. But I think it's going to be a phase 3 thing, and then phase 3 it may come as early as September. It probably in May, because they're talking. We need to make the government's going to have to make decisions on phase 3 probably by September or for September. You got schooling, you got all these other issues. So, and it might be a regional thing too. You know, we'll see what happens. But they're talking about opening the provincial campgrounds. They're talking, and they're telling that they get ready. There's a number of things. So, what happens if those all open in July and what have you? And that could happen that quick. So, I think maybe we should be doing planning, but be looking at maybe a September initiative, and maybe have another initiative based on what Councillor Bateman even said. Maybe we should be looking at a soft marketing plan for the summer, and for the summer, I'm saying, not just one day, and then look at something a little. Now, this is not Apple Fest we're talking. I'm just talking about what Ben's been working on, but carrying it over into early September or late August, perhaps. But we had canceled all our events till the end of July, and I know we're not calling this an event, but it's on the edge of one. So that's my opinion. I think we should wait a little bit on this this opening of the street. I really do.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. Councillor Rowley.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to speak to Councillor Anderson's comments, this is all contingent on whether or not the government will allow us to do whatever we want to do. We don't know that. I mean, we could plan everything for the middle of July and be totally shut down. So, you know, but if we don't plan for anything, if we don't kind of maybe organize something at some point that we can use, whether we roll it out well into August or well into September, we don't know that. But like I say, my comment is not to support it means we just shut it down.
I just want to come back on that. Am I still there?
Yep, carry on.
I agree. Like we haven't got the approvals back on everything like that. You know, there's so much to be done here, so much volunteering to be done, so much help that's needed to get help Ben get this done. And the DBI will have to step up and keep their hours open. Everybody's got to take part. It can't be just a half the stores taking part. You know, I'm not even going to go there, but if to be done right, it needs to all come together. So I think there should be some plans for the summer and some initiative on our part to assist those stores or those businesses, and then look towards the end of August or perhaps the first week of September or something.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. We're kind of going in circles here.
I
so,
know, but I
um,
think it's
Councillor
important.
Tadman, if it's a new comment, go ahead.
Probably not all that new, Mayor, so I'll leave it.
Thank you.
Just the fact that I will not be supporting this, and I think we can put our money to better use.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
I just wanted to have you reread the motion and call the vote.
Sure. Well, actually, I was going to go to Councillor Rowley to see if she wanted to amend the motion in any way, or do you want me to read it as is?
I can't remember exactly what you read, Mayor, so if you could. read it.
That council authorize staff to proceed with an open air street mall in partnership with the local business community.
So you've taken, shut Main Street down.
I
Can
did-
we?
I never had it in the original
Oh, you
motion.
didn't have it in there. Can we add somewhere that staff explore options, not leaving it to just one idea? Just want to give Ben a little bit more space.
Council direct staff to proceed with planning.
Planning,
Planning what? And
Ben, help me out here.
Promoting, Mayor,
Planning,
promoting all
or
businesses.
what did you say, Mary?
I said, why don't we put promoting all businesses? That gives Ben a wide range of different ideas.
Exactly. That's kind of where I want to end up, Mary, that
Brilliant,
Ben,
Ty.
well, it sounds like we're putting a motion on the floor to tell Ben to do his job.
no, I don't want to tell Ben to do his job. I want to give Ben opportunity to do, just to take direction from what we get. So, okay, so options to promote business, not just downtown.
Right, but that's Ben's job.
That's Ben's job. All right, so you want to take the motion off the floor?
Well, that would be up to you. You're the mover.
No, I'm going to leave it on the floor. We'll see how council wants to support
How
what's going
about,
on in Brighton.
So right now, the mover has left the motion as is and on the floor. Councillor Anderson, you're the seconder still. Is there any further discussion? As long as it's new, Councillor Bateman?
I think it's new because we started to answer it and then we went off in a different direction. Because I know it's not in the motion, but if it comes back on whatever decision, because I'm 100% in favor of promoting all businesses downtown, not downtown and all over, because I know they need it. And everybody needs the help. Just not sure that shutting down Main Street, even though it's not in the motion, if that's the decision and it doesn't come before council, I really don't want to find out that we're shutting down Main Street because someone's yelling at me as I drive by Main Street on a different day. I'd rather be part of that decision-making process or know about it ahead of time.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
So the motion, has it been amended or has it been left the same? I'm just trying to get
Left the
clear.
same.
It's left the
as
same.
is, yeah.
So whatever Ben decides at this point, he's not reporting back to council. He will be doing whatever him and the group decides to do. Is that correct? I just want to be clear.
That would be what we're agreeing to if we say yes to this motion.
Okay.
Well, then I'd like to change the motion.
Okay, what would you like it to change to?
I would like to change it to, poor Ben, that once we come up with an idea, that Ben bring it back to council, regardless of whether we have to pull a special meeting. We'll figure it out.
Okay, so then something like that council direct staff to proceed with the planning of an open air street mall in partnership with the local business community and report back to council at a regular or special meeting for authorization.
Yes.
As the seconder, are you okay with that, Councillor Anderson?
Well, it's timely, but I think it might be the only option we have. So yes.
That's what I'm reading too, Ron. We don't have
Any
much
question-
option here.
Any questions or comments on that altered or amended motion? Deputy Mayor.
Sorry, I'm not trying to drag this out, but we've just received a report and it says in there that there would be an open air street mall and we'd close down Main Street. He's already done all the work. now we're asking him to go back and do it again. Are we going to be getting new information? I just don't want to make work where we don't need to. I think we're all hesitant to make this decision or turn this down because we want to do the right thing, but will we be receiving new information, or are we just putting this off another month? I guess that's my question. For whomever's wants to answer.
I know we're going in circles.
Hang on, Mr. Hagerman, would you have anything to go back and plan for, or do you feel that the planning has already been done and that your report stands? If we want to go ahead with an open air street mall, you've provided your professional advice to us and we should proceed. And if we don't want to go ahead with it, we should tell you right now.
I would say so. I mean, given some of the comments and really good discussion, I think it shows that there's a lot of hesitation in this. So I'm not sure if coming up with a different concept might be the answer, whether it's digital, whether it's in a neutral location where we can bring in all business. I'm not sure, but this certainly sounds maybe like like council's a little bit hesitant on making this decision today. So I'm not sure what other information I would bring in a special meeting unless it was an alteration to this.
Councillor Tadman.
Thank you. Could I suggest that we call the vote? Because I think we're just going to spin our wheels till tomorrow.
I think that's a pretty good suggestion. I guess I'd like to know from the mover and seconder, what are we calling the vote on? The original motion, which is to support Ben's recommendation of an open air street mall on Main Street, or the, I think, recently amended motion to ask Ben to go back and provide more planning and bring it back from further authorization.
But am I live?
You are.
Okay. We need to make an effort. And if we need to do a trial for one day that we're talking about, what harm is going to be in that? So I believe we should stick with the initial motion and make our decision based on that. I'm not telling you which way anybody should go, but I think we need to make a move to see what will work or if it will work, and then be geared up to do further enhanced work on later dates if it is successful, using all the controls that are going to be required. And it may get turned down when you start applying for all these permits, or these approvals. So I say we need to leave it the way it is and let's vote based on what's there.
Councillor Rowley, you okay with
Go
that?
back to see where it goes.
So we're sticking with the original motion that council authorized staff to proceed with an open air street mall in partnership with the local business community. Assuming we've talked this through, Councillor LeBlanc, is this a new comment, sir?
Yes, through you, Mayor. Does this motion include all businesses?
It would be in partnership with the local business community, so all local businesses. And according to Mr. Hagerman's report, businesses outside the area of the street mall would be invited in to do whatever it is they want to do, I guess. So, Councillor Anderson?
And that it's just registered businesses with the municipality, not necessarily outside street vendors and that type of thing, right?
That would be the intention, yes.
Okay.
Outside street vendors are for another day.
Okay.
Anyone else? Councillor Tadman, I saw your hand go in front of the camera. Was that just a?
Yeah, I know this has gone on too long, but so let's say the hardware store wanted to come up there. They could take up the whole of Veterans Way. Other people, it's extra cost, everything else. I just think the whole thing is not good for Brighton. So let's call the vote.
I agree. Councillor Bateman?
And it's a new comment. I was just going to say in response to Councillor Anderson, what harm is in it? The harm is in it. you know, Councillor Tadman mentioned Home Hardware. If they didn't participate, how is rerouting traffic? You know, Cheers, Farms, Crinklewood. So the harm in it is the negative impact on those that don't if we do block the street. And that's been my concern all along. I'm all in favor of helping. I just think there has to be a better idea than shutting off Main Street and hoping they're going to come.
So you're against Apple Fest?
This
Stop.
is an Apple
No,
Fest,
stop,
and there's
stop,
social
stop,
distancing.
stop, 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 stop.
Well, I'm just saying.
No.
Can I make one more
I-
comment?
Two
Hang
different
on,
things.
hang on. Nobody's against doing something. And I understand the concern. I understand Councillor Tadman's concern and Councillor Bateman's concern. I've been the one who has said, you know, something's better than nothing. But, you know, to the deputy mayor's point, maybe this something isn't the right thing. We're never really going to know unless we dip our toe in this water and try to figure it out. Is this the right water? We don't know for sure, and we won't know until all is said and done. So, Councillor Rowley, I'll go to you first.
Thank you for a minute. Must remember, we're not closing it all day. This is for just a few hours. There's still before 10 o'clock and after 2 o'clock. So there's still going to be access to everywhere else. This is just for a few hours of opportunity. That's how we're not closing it from 8 in the morning till 6 at night. We're not denying anybody else shopping whether or not they can bring their wares to Main Street or to Veterans Way or to any parking lot. We're doing this for a few hours on a Saturday, maybe.
Last comment, anyone? Councillor Bateman, you've got the last comment, and then I'm going to the clerk to call the vote.
I just wanted to reiterate that I'm 100% in support of supporting businesses. And I think it was highly inappropriate for Councillor Anderson to think that I don't support Apple Fest in any way, shape, or form. I have since '91. This is not Apple Fest. This is not the same time as Apple Fest. So that was totally inappropriate.
Madam Clerk, you're up.
Councillor Rod Anderson.
Can I respond to somebody that made a comment about what I said?
We're calling the vote, Ron. I'll let you respond after we've called the vote, okay?
Okay. So, sorry, the motion, yes.
Councillor Mark Bateman.
No.
Councillor Doug LeBlanc.
Yes.
Councillor Emily Rowley.
Yes.
Councillor Mary Tadman.
No.
Deputy Mayor Laura Vink.
Yes.
Mayor Brian Ostrander.
Yes,
Carried.
thank you. Councillor Anderson, you have the floor for a brief rebuttal, but be nice.
I'm always nice.
I know you are, sir.
What I said, and I'll say to Councillor Bateman, I want to apologize for what I said, but it was out of emotion, and it was trying to make a point that probably wasn't clear. I could have used another event. I'm just saying that you knew where it was coming from. I'm sorry it was directed at you, but when we're talking about something like that, that didn't, and to me, it didn't make sense. So I lunged out and made that comment, but I won't regret saying it because I'm making my point. So anyhow, good job, Councillor Bateman.
Okay, so we're all good? Councillor Bateman, you're good?
Sure.
Sure, all right. Our next report is from the Parks and Recreation Department with regard to the progress report on the new dog park and the opening date. Mr. Miller, we've read your report. Do you have anything to add or highlight?
Just the fact that I think everybody's looking forward to getting it open. And that's the date that I feel that we're going to have everything in place, signage, the structures they had before, and some of the landscaping that we've had to do. That property wasn't as green and lush as the one next door. So there were a lot of trees and whatnot we had to remove. So that's kind of where we're at right now, is the landscaping to get it ready. As well as the name. I've had a lot of people asking me, and I'm basically just been calling it the Municipal Dog Park. Does anybody have any suggestions or any thoughts at this time?
Deputy Mayor?
I think it should be the Mary Tavern Dog Park. Sorry, I just had to throw that in there at this point. We need to light things up a little bit.
Oh,
Thank you,
okay,
Jim.
just a
I think
minute,
people
Mayor.
are really
Now I
happy about
really
this.
feel offended. She's calling me a bloody dog.
No, no, ma'am, she's not. She's just trying to name a park after you.
You owe me.
I would suggest maybe we hold, unless we're calling it, the Brighton Dog Park, which makes sense since we only have one.
That's basically it.
Yeah. Unless there's a specific name out there that someone wants to name it. But if they do, they could petition council. We could go through the naming process as we would with any other space in the municipality. Deputy Mayor?
Well, we can always use things to lighten up, the times that we're in. So, we can call it the Brighton Dog Park and maybe run a contest. I don't know. Something fun to do in Brighton.
So we can have that discussion another time. Let's get the thing open and get people using it, and then see what comes forward. You've said you've had people asking that question. Perhaps you could offer the suggestion that they could bring ideas forward, or in the deputy mayor, his suggestion is to hold some sort of contest, which I think would be nice and fun to do as well. So maybe we can go down that road, but perhaps I would look to you, Mr. Miller, to bring a report to council to figure out how that contest would work and how we move that forward. Okay.
I'm sure I'll talk to Mr. Hagerman about that too.
There you go.
But yeah, I just, at the end of the day, obviously you want to get the facility open. I'm thinking that day too, you'd want a small ribbon cutting. So that's the other reason to getting this report on today. So it gives me a week or so to invite everybody that should be there, as well as the public to it. Again, with social distancing and everything, it can't be a real grand opening with barbecue and everything, but at least we have something in place that we can signify being open.
Okay, I'm going to read the motion. We'll get it on the floor and then I'll take more questions and comments. The motion will read that council receives a staff report from the Director of Parks and Recreation as information and announces that the new dog park facility will be open to the public on Friday, June 26th with a small ribbon cutting ceremony that morning. Is there a mover?
Sure, I'll move it.
I'll second it.
I have it moved by Councillor LeBlanc and seconded by Councillor Tadman. Is there any further discussion? I think Councillor Tadman, you had your hand up.
Yeah, just all the children, especially all the students, have really been on lockdown for a long time. Might be a nice gesture to offer naming the park for them. Let them have a contest. I think that would be kind of fun for them. All the students, I don't care what age.
There you go. So lots of suggestions there for you, Mr. Miller and Mr. Hagerman, if you get drawn into that particular circle. Any further discussion? Madam Clerk, will you please call the vote?
Councillor Ron Anderson,
Yes.
Councillor Mark Bateman,
Yes.
Councillor Doug LeBlanc,
Yes.
Councillor Emily Rowley,
Yes.
Councillor Mary Tadman,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Laura Vink,
Yes.
Mayor Brian Ostrander.
Yes.
Carried.
Thank you. Now we move into our roundtable discussion. So I will go around the circle as I see it on my screen, and I will end with CAO Castleman. Mr. Walsh, this is an opportunity for staff to just sort of bring highlights from the last meeting, things that are going on to keep council informed of what's happening. So you may not have too much to say since you've been with us 5 working days, but we'll see. Madam Clerk, you're first. Anything to report?
That we have accessibility training set up for the senior staff members that are involved for July 7th, and it's just a morning session, but it's something and it's getting us started.
Thank you.
I don't think there was anything else. No, I think we're good.
Thank you. Mr. Miller.
Well, regarding the splash pad, today was supposed to be the opening day. Right now, we've got our main controller. It's not working, it's blank. So we got a new one on the way. Hopefully we'll get it in the next day or two and we'll be up and running. Other than that, we're just busy keeping the grass cut, flowers, getting them all planted and hanging baskets and whatnot. They look really good this year. So our main goal is to obviously keep it that way. Basically that's about it. I mean, basically waiting to see what the province is going to announce and go from there. I have a meeting tomorrow with Hockey Canada. There is a video call with a lot of the arena managers and that with Hockey Canada to discuss what their plans are going forward for minor hockey this fall, the way they see it. So I think a lot of information is going to come in the next week or so regarding that.
Thank you. Councillor Tadman.
You know, I'm like a dog with a bone, so I'm going to bring up about the dock that's in the water that's unsightly up on Bay Street West that's been there for a long time. And I don't know who would be responsible for getting it out of there, but it needs to come out. And at the other end of Gosport on the same street as I live on, but down by the yacht club is municipal owned property that could be a lovely park. And we do have a picnic table, and we've actually, the Heritage Committee put up a nice monument to the Proctor family. And people have last year and other years have used it to take their kayaks there and then go out from there. But it's a mess where you go in the water. And I've asked, can't we put some gravel down and have that graded? The whole driveway needs to be graded. So I will persist, and maybe it's Public Works that needs to get on it, but it's a lovely place for people. Nobody knows about it hardly at all. And I think it should be utilized, especially this year with COVID. That's all I got to complain about today, but I'm sure I'll think of something later.
You know, the end that you're talking about there, the end of the roadway, I believe that gravel was dumped there last Thursday and it's been graded.
I haven't been down, Jim, since Thursday, so good.
So it's been done.
And has it been graded?
It's been back dragged.
Has it?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions or any questions at all for Mr. Miller? I should have asked if there were any questions for the clerk.
No.
Okay, so I'm going to move on to the treasurer.
Well, I'm happy to report that all of the finance staff are back in the office now, full-time. We've moved some down to the second floor to make it easier for social distancing.
Thank you. News, Chief Caddick. Sorry, does anyone have any questions for the treasurer before we go to the chief? Councillor Rowley?
Not a question, but Linda, thank you so much for all your help with my broken down iPad, but I have my own back now. A lot of work you tried to do today that just didn't go away.
You're welcome.
Chief Caddick, over to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Pretty much status quo here at the fire department. Things are moving along. I've been focusing all my time and energy on getting staff back to work as far as in the municipal level, and we've been developing with our recovery group policies, procedures, and enhanced training for all staff. And our goal, and we will be successful to have that completed by end of this week, so that all staff can be operating safely. And next phase will be getting the public back in, but that will come in the future.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions for the chief? No. Mr. Parkinson.
Thank you, Your Worship. The only new thing in Public Works is that we have all staff back as of today. And the projects that we're currently focusing on would be COVID proofing our buildings and getting the safety measures in place. Just to, keep everybody safe and to start to prepare for when we open back up for the public to come in. And that's everything.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Parkinson? No. Mr. Walsh? Any updates?
No updates, Mayor, to council. I've got a long list of asks and questions to meet with Daryl Ty tomorrow, and so we're going over that long list, and hopefully we'll get through it all, and that will help with transition matters that we're working on. I've reached out to a number of people regarding the senior planner's position. So Bob and I have been working on that, so that's moving forward. So those are a couple of the key priorities that have kept me a little bit busy to date.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh, and again, welcome to Brighton. We hope you have a long and successful career here.
Thank you, I appreciate it. I'm sure I will.
Mr. Hagerman, you've been through the ringer today, but if you have anything else you'd like to highlight, you may.
No, not at this time. Thank you.
That's a smart man right there. Mr. Castleman. You're muted, Bob, and I can't read your lips when you say that many words.
I'm going to take Mr. Hagerman's lead and say thank you very much for the opportunity, but nothing new from this end.
Thank you. All right, quickly around, if council has any questions for any member of senior staff, Mr. Bateman, or Councillor Bateman, pardon me.
Actually, it's for you first, and then you can determine where you want it to go.
Very well.
It's regarding all the emails we saw going back and forth on the Street South, and you had mentioned that we might talk about this. I don't know if this is the place to or not to talk about it. But you said we might, because I know I've received personally tons of emails on it.
Could you cut out on me there? What were the emails about?
On the whole, at the end of Pinnacle Street South, in that whole situation, that a couple of us have had multiple emails.
Mr. Parkinson, you've been working on the gravel and the mess on Pinnacle Street South, and maybe Mr. Miller, you'd like to touch on some of the other concerns that we've heard about in the park as well. So first, Mr. Parkinson, on the gravel issue, I think at the end of the road there might be just a quick update there.
Thank you, Your Worship. We've swept every square inch of Pinnacle Street South, and we've applied calcium dust suppressant to all the gravel surfaces, right from the grass down near the railway tracks, all the way up through the parking space, right to the arena. And I drove it multiple times over the weekend, witnessed trucks coming and going, and did not see any dust from those trucks. So I'm thinking we solve those measures from now, but certainly some good rains will help rinse the street further. But unfortunately, we had a fairly dry spring, so that didn't happen for us this year.
Thank you, Mr. Parkinson. And Mr. Miller, could you speak to some of the concerns that we've also heard going on in the creek and the park there?
Essentially, the concern is the property or the area behind our garage. Years ago, I mean, it was Public Works yard, and it's kind of a place where a lot of stuff was basically placed, a lot of old material and whatnot. So we've been cleaning it up. We spent half a day on Friday cleaning it. The creek bed right now is looking really good. And we're starting to look at the material that's to the west of it now. So that's basically where we are.
Thank you. And Councillor Bateman, does that satisfy your question?
Yeah, I just didn't know where it was, because I don't know of others. I know I have received multiple emails, and they escalate in concern of whether something's getting done. And all
I have pictures. I've taken pictures this morning. If you wish, I can send them out to council. If you wish.
Well, I don't think they would do anything for me, because when I got them, I sent them to you guys.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's
well,
not
it
my
is being
area.
looked after.
Yeah, it's more for you guys in the ministry, right?
Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Tadman.
This has been brought up, as you know, Mayor, and probably Councillor Rowley and probably Councillor Bink when she was councillor, sorry. But I believe 2 years ago, there was a study done to figure out where we could put that whole problem with the big trucks going back and forth day and night with water. And I don't even remember us really looking at that report, never mind moving any farther. I just really think it's very unfair to residents to be wakened at 6 in the morning. And I understand, I'm not there at 6 in the morning, don't plan to be, but I understand that the brakes, whatever, air brakes and whatever, there's a lot of noise. And now the dust is taken care of, but the noise is extreme. And I have been there even talking outside to some of the neighbors, and you can't hear when those trucks go by, and some of them are speeding. I believe with all my heart that needs to be moved out of there in some place in the industrial park or whatever, but let's do some more thinking about this. Let's, as a council, finally move that out of there.
Mr. Castleman, perhaps we could bring that or some item about cleaning it up to budget for 2021.
Sure, that's
We
great.
can have that discussion then, because I know that would not be a cheap endeavor. So it's something council would have to get its head around.
Okay.
Excuse me, Mayor.
Yeah.
I would think we've got that urban infrastructure reserve. If there's no other money, this has been going on for a long time, and those residents have come before council. They've been given promises that have never been fulfilled. I think that it's easy to say, let's put it off till next year's budget, and then maybe another COVID will come flying by or something. Let's make a determination to get the damn thing done.
We'll ask for parliamentary language during council meetings. If you'd like to bring
Oh,
a
they
notice
use worse than that, Mayor.
if you'd like to bring a notice of motion to the next meeting, I'm sure council would consider moving forward on it.
It'll be there.
Very well, thank you. Look forward to it. All right, Councillor Rowley, quickly, so we can move forward to
Thank you.
bylaws.
Just do we not have a bylaw that they shouldn't be running those trucks down there before 7 o'clock?
I believe there's rules around that, yes.
Yeah. Could that not be police maybe a little bit? I'm not sure. I don't know.
I think
Even for the noise.
I think Mr. Castleman's making some notes, and bylaw enforcement can take a look at whether that's happening within our bylaws.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor LeBlanc.
Oh, I'm muted. Is there any way, through you, Mayor, through the CAO or Preston, is there any way we could see that study that was done or the report that was written that was passed by the previous council?
I'm sure Mr. Castleman or someone could find the study if it was done, and we'll send it to all members of council by email. And no doubt it will be part and parcel of a report once we hear Councillor Tadman's notice of motion come forward, and we read that and make it part of our planning moving forward. Mr. Parkinson.
Sorry, just if I could, Your Worship. The council approved a water model study, and we're currently going through the process of building that tender. And through that study, it will identify alternate locations for the bulk water station, considering flows and any constraints in our system. And that will give us an answer, but unfortunately it will be next year before we actually could move to, move the bulk water station and get that construction work done. So we are in the works of trying to identify it, and it'll be part of that water model project that was approved in the 2020 budget.
Thank you. Councillor Tadman.
Thank you, Preston. That's good information to know. So I won't necessarily, as I understand it now, need to bring a notice of motion forward. So as I say that I'm a dog with a bone, and this has been going on. It's got to been going on for about 10 years. So let's, as a council, get this going. And I won't now bring a notice of motion. I'll wait to see what comes out of this report. But the other things, well, I still got the floor, and I don't know who this, whether it's Preston. I know it's the bylaw officer, and he's not here. But I've been asked, do we have a fencing bylaw? Because there's two neighbors that are having quite a disagreement. And so, first of all, do they have to go get a survey again after they've already had their survey and they got their deeds and everything? Or what happens in a case where somebody puts a fence up on your property? Does anybody here know? I don't know whether even planning would know that.
I think that is a question that the property owner could ask the clerk's office through bylaw
They have
enforcement.
asked everybody and they don't seem to know, and they just said there's no bylaw. So where do they go from there? Hire a lawyer?
Madam Clerk?
We have a line fence viewer group committee. Nobody has contacted me, Mary. This is where they would start. They need to come, they need to contact me and I can talk them through the process.
Thank you, Candace.
You're welcome.
There you go. All right, we're going to go move on to bylaws now. And our first bylaw is with regard to the Hartman zoning bylaw amendment Z02 2020. And it will read as follows. The council gives a bylaw its first, second, and third reading and finally passes on this date, being a bylaw under the provisions of Section 34 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, to amend bylaw number 140/2002 as otherwise amended, of the Corporation of the Municipality of Brighton as it applies to certain lands located in part of lots 3 and 4, concession 3, 79 Newton Lane in the Municipality of Brighton. Is there a mover? Councillor Rowley, is there a seconder? Deputy Mayor Vink. Is there any further discussion on this item? Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Councillor Ron Anderson,
Yes.
Councillor Mark Bateman,
Yes.
Councillor Doug LeBlanc,
Yes.
Councillor Emily Rowley,
Yes.
Councillor Mary Tadman,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Laura Vink,
Yes.
Mayor Brian Ostrander.
Yes.
Carried.
Our next bylaw is with regard to the Watkins zoning bylaw amendment Z03 2020, and it will read that council gives a bylaw its first, second, and third reading and finally passes on this date, being a bylaw under the provisions of Section 34 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, to amend bylaw number 140/2002 as otherwise amended of the Corporation of the Municipality of Brighton as it applies to certain lands located in Part Block H of Plan 4, part of Part 1 of Registered Plan 38R 2659 in the Municipality of Brighton. Their mover. It's moved by Councillor LeBlanc, seconded by Councillor Rowley. Is there any further discussion on this item? Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Councillor Ron Anderson,
Yes.
Councillor Mark Bateman,
Yes.
Councillor Doug LeBlanc,
Yes.
Councillor Emily Rowley,
Yes.
Councillor Mary Tadman,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Laura Vink,
Yes.
Mayor Brian Ostrander.
Yes.
Carried.
Our next bylaw is with regard to an agreement between the municipality and the Canadian Union of Public Employees and its local 5085. And it will read that council gives a bylaw its first, second, and third reading and finally passes on this date, being a bylaw to authorize the CAO and treasurer to execute an agreement between the Corporation of the Municipality of Brighton and Canadian Union of Public Employees and its local 5085 for the period starting January 1st, 2020 and ending December 31st, 2020. Is there a mover? It's moved by Councillor Rowley and seconded by Councillor Bateman. Is there any discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Counselor Ron Anderson,
Yes.
Counselor Mark Bateman,
Yes.
Counselor Doug LeBlanc,
Yes.
Counselor Emily Rowley,
Yes.
Counselor Mary Tadman,
Yep.
Deputy Mayor Laura Vink,
Yes.
Mayor Brian Ostrander.
Yes.
Carried.
And the next portion of our meeting will be in a closed session. So I will read the motion and then we will take a 10-minute recess as we all do what we need to do before logging into our in-camera session. The motion will read: the council resolve itself into closed session June 15th, 2020 at 4:42 p.m. Pursuant to the Ontario Municipal Act 2001 as amended, subsection 239(2)B, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, private property for a trail system. I need a mover.
I'll move it.
Councillor Anderson and a seconder. Councillor LeBlanc. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Oh, sorry, Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Counselor Ron Anderson,
Yes.
Counselor Mark Bateman,
Yes.
Counselor Doug LeBlanc,
Yes.
Counselor Emily Rowley,
Yes.
Counselor Mary Tadman,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Laura Vink,
Yes.
Mayor Brian Ostrander.
Yes.
Carried.
Mayor,
Thank
before
you.
we leave this place, may I make an announcement? I should have done it earlier.
I
You
should
getting
think you
married?
should have. Go ahead quickly.
Thank you. I just want to remind council and maybe staff that in partnership with our library and the Brighton Digital Archives, we are working on a wonderful virtual Canada Day event, which will be up on the municipal website, YouTube, Facebook, and I believe also on Cogeco for those who don't have a computer to watch this. As we won't be meeting before the 1st of July, just wanted to remind council and everyone who's listening that that's going to happen.
Thank you, Councillor Rowley. So I will call the closed session meeting back to order at or about 4:53. So that's 10 minutes from now. And that is through another system, and Candace did send out an email reminder just before this meeting. So I'll see you all. Yes,
We're not logging out, correct?
you don't have to log out. Mr.
No.
Watson will park us.
So we don't log out, right?
No,
That's
No.
correct.
Do not
Okay.
log out.
don't do
Okay.
anything. Randy will do it all.
Don't
Thank
do
you.
anything. The only thing you might want to do is stop
Mute.
your video, but other than that, and your audio, but other than that, you're fine.
Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Watson. So we are back in the open session with a motion that council rise and report from closed session June 15th, 2020 at 5:16 p.m. I'll need a mover. It's moved by Deputy Mayor Vink, seconded by Councillor Bateman. Is there any discussion? Those in favor? No, sorry, Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Councillor Ron Anderson,
Yes.
Councillor Mark Bateman,
Yes.
Councillor Doug LeBlanc,
Yes.
Councillor Emily Rowley,
Yes.
Councillor Mary Tadman,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Laura Vink,
Yes.
Mayor Brian Ostrander.
Yes. And a confirmatory bylaw will read that council gives a bylaw its first, second, and third reading and finally passes on this date, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the corporation of the Municipality of Brighton Council and planning meeting held on June 15th, 2020. Is there a mover?
I'll move it.
It's moved by Councillor Rowley and seconded by Councillor Anderson. Is there any discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Councillor Ron Anderson,
Yes.
Councillor Mark Bateman,
Yes.
Councillor Doug LeBlanc,
Yes.
Councillor Emily Rowley,
Yes.
Councillor Mary Tadman,
No, I want to stay here for another 2 hours.
up
Yes.
already. Deputy Mayor Laura Vink,
Yes.
Mayor Brian Ostrander.
Yes.
Carries.
Thank you. Thank you all very much. Good meeting. Lots of really robust discussion. It's appreciated. So it's 5:18 p.m. and I will adjourn this meeting of Brighton Council.
Good night.
See you, everyone.
Bye-bye. Bye. Enjoy your day.